Hello, health champions. Today I'm going to talk about the 5 secrets to losing weight effortlessly and forever. Coming right up. Hey, I'm Dr. Ekberg. I'm a holistic doctor and a former Olympic decathlete. And if you want to truly master health by understanding how the body really works, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything. Millions of people try to lose weight and only end up gaining it all back. Why does that happen to 98% of people? Do they not have a strong enough intention? Do they not have enough willpower? Are they lazy? No, it's because they're doing it wrong. And then they're being lied to and they're being told that you just need to eat less and exercise more, and the reason it's not working is because you just don't have the willpower. You're not good enough. You don't have the motivation or the character or whatever it is. And pretty soon all these people, they don't know of anything different, so they start doubting themselves. They start feeling guilty and shameful and saying, oh, there must be something wrong with me. But that is not how it works. Okay? The obesity epidemic is exponential, but it's not because Earth has been overwhelmed by a bunch of people with no willpower. It's because we have changed the way we eat and we've changed the way we live. There is hope. There is nothing wrong with your willpower or your character. What needs to change is your understanding of what the real problem is. So let's go through those. The number one thing, the number one secret you need to understand is don't go on a diet. Don't ever go on a diet again, because it didn't work last time and it hasn't worked for the millions of people who are trying it over and over and over, right? Diets don't work. When you go on a diet, at some point you plan to go off a diet. So the very idea that you're going to go on something implies that you're going to get off it. And then you'll be right back where you started, and that's why we have all these yo-yo dieters. Because what happens if you think that the problem is eating less and exercising more, if that's the solution, then you're going to get hungry and you can only keep it up so long, and then you're on the yo-yo, you fail, you have guilt, shame, and you end up stop trying, and before long you'll have fear of failure and you're afraid of going on the diet the next time because you're afraid of being hungry, because that's what happened last time, but you don't know what else to do. Okay? So there is hope. Let's talk about it. The number one misconception that we have to get over is that it's calories in, calories out. Yes, we all understand the first law of thermodynamics, that the energy remains constant in a closed system, but a calorie is not a calorie. They behave differently. They change your behavior. All right? Some calories are going to stimulate hunger. Some calories are going to satiate hunger. They're going to trigger different hormones. They're going to trigger different behavior. And you already know this because 500 calories of steak is not the same satisfaction. It doesn't satiate you the same as 500 calories of potato chips. You know there's a difference. Okay? Your body responds differently. So all these people who say that calories in, calories out is the only variable to look at, they are guilty of insanity. That means doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. Okay, we've tried this. We've tried it for decades, and millions and millions and millions of people have tried it, and somewhere around 1% or so succeed. And those are the people who have extreme willpower and motivation, but they're also the kind of people who weren't really that unbalanced in the first place. So the first thing I want you to promise me is to never go on a diet again. It's okay to do a cleanse for a week or 2 or 3, but that's different. What we're talking about is a lifestyle change that once you start implementing it, You only make changes that you plan to keep up for the rest of your life. Because otherwise you're going to go on and you're going to go off and you're right back where you started. Secret number 2, we have to address the root cause. If your body is behaving a certain way, there's a reason your body is behaving a certain way. There's a reason that you're hungry. There's a reason the food impacts you differently. And those reasons that change your behavior are called hormones. And a hormone imbalance is the root cause. And you can never keep your hormone imbalance and just override it with willpower. It's not going to work. Never has, never will. That's why we have the track record we do. The hormones in question are primarily insulin, cortisol, leptin, and growth hormone. So insulin we've talked a lot about. It's a fat-storing hormone. When you eat food, your blood sugar goes up. Insulin is released to take the blood sugar out of the bloodstream. Sugars and carbohydrates trigger the most blood sugar, so they trigger the most insulin. So they have the strongest tendency to store fat. Insulin promotes the conversion of carbohydrate to fat, and it inhibits the conversion of fat to energy. So in other words, it is a fat-storing hormone, and if we want to get into fat burning, you can't do it by exercising and eating less. You have to reduce the insulin dominance, the insulin resistance in your body. Cortisol is another hormone. It's stress hormone. So when you have a lot of stress, your body does everything it can. It burns every bridge possible to get your blood sugar up because it perceives that there's an emergency when you're stressed, and then you need more of the short-term fuel called carbohydrate and blood sugar. But when your blood sugar goes up, but you're not moving because you're just sitting in a car being stressed, or you're just stressed throughout the day from everything going on, there is no outlet for that blood sugar, so insulin has to put it back in to the cell, and now the cortisol drives insulin and insulin resistance. Leptin is a satiety hormone. So it regulates how full you feel and how safe your body feels in using energy. So when you're leptin sensitive, leptin signals that we've had enough and it's safe to burn off some for energy. But when you become leptin resistant, when you're not sensitive, when your brain isn't sensing the message, then even though you've eaten lots and lots of food, you're not satisfied. Your body isn't full, but even worse, it doesn't even feel that it's safe to burn some of that energy that you ate and that you have stored. So you're still in eating mode and in fat storing mode. And guess what? It's the insulin that primarily turns off the sensitivity to leptin. The last is growth hormone, and growth hormone is a fat burning hormone. It is also a muscle building hormone. It is primarily triggered by fasting. When you don't eat, then the body says, oh, there's no food here, we better burn some fat. But insulin completely and totally, pretty much, turns off growth hormone. So when we eat frequent meals and we eat foods that trigger a lot of insulin, then growth hormone is always going to be very low. And here's the thing that a lot of people miss, that an imbalance in these hormones make you hungry. All right? We speak about calories in, calories out as if hunger was something that you could just overlook. Oh, I'm hungry. I'm just going to ignore that. You could do that for a day or two, or maybe a week, or if you're like super will-powered, or if you're in prison somewhere and they only give you so much, then you don't have a choice. But hunger is not something that you can fight very long, and certainly not the rest of your life. So if you're hungry, your body is screaming, and the more that you try to deny that need, that physiological need, the more the body is going to scream. That's why it is not sustainable. When people talk about diets not being sustainable, the calorie restriction diet is not sustainable, period. And Your own common sense and your experience will verify that. So if we ever want to conquer hunger, if we ever want to get to the place where we are effortlessly living and losing weight, the only way is to get these hormones in balance. And that's with the lifestyle and the type of foods that we eat, not the amount of foods that we eat. Number 3 secret to effortless weight loss is to understand what food is. Right? We've completely lost track. We've completely lost all concept as a culture of what food is. We think that it's something you put in your mouth that gives you some sort of gratification for a few minutes. That's not what food is. Think about it this way. Is there any other animal on the planet that has a widespread problem with obesity and weight control? Of course not. Sure, elephants and whales are super heavy, but they're not obese. They're supposed to be heavy. They're supposed to have the amount of fat they have is appropriate for that species, right? There are no overweight animals in the wild on a regular widespread basis. Okay? They regulate that. Why? Because they eat real food. They eat the food that is appropriate for their species, and because it's real food, because it has dense nutrients, because it promotes and stimulates appropriate hormones, because it is satisfying, then hunger turns on and off appropriately, and that's what real food does. The only reason that we have lost that ability to determine what appropriate hunger and satiety is, and that we eat too much and we slow down our metabolism, is because we've eaten food that destroy our hormonal balance. We eat processed food, we eat man-made food. The only other animals on the planet that have a weight problem are our pets and any other animal that's unfortunate enough to eat man-made food. But natural, whole food provided by the planet promotes health, and it does not create health imbalances or weight problems or hunger issues. And most people today would agree with that. Most dietitians and doctors, no matter what camp they reside in, they would say that no, you minimize processed food, eat whole food. But then we disagree a lot on what real normal food is, and especially about fat, because we've got this fat phobia. We got somewhere along the line, for all the wrong reasons I won't get into today, we decided that fat was bad. And that was a monumental mistake, because fat is the preferred fuel for the body. So a lot of the people who criticize and oppose the low-carb, high-fat movement and the ketogenic movement, they think it's because the high-fat diet is unnatural. They say that, well, it's an extremely high-fat diet, it's an extremely low-carb diet, and because that it's not sustainable. You can't do that because it's unnatural. And that is a huge misconception, because what is it extremely high compared to? All right? If in this room right now it's about 20 degrees Celsius or about 70 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you were to take a polar bear or a penguin into this room, then they would find it extremely hot. Okay? But to us, it's normal. So the question then is, what is normal to humans? And it certainly isn't the kind of foods we've been eating for 60 years, right? So ever since we got this enormous boom in processed foods and the processed food era, we have had this sort of development for obesity. And from 1960 and on, the processed food, we did more and more food processing. But then around 1980, we introduced high fructose corn syrup. That was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. But this is the trend that we have had. So in other words, this is the track record of what a lot of people think normal food is. If you think that the 50, 60,000 items in your grocery store is normal food, then you're wrong. That's not normal food. That's not normal. And this is what has happened as a result. So we have to understand that what they call extremely high fat and extremely low carb is normal human food. As long as it is whole food, as long as it is pretty much the way that it came out of the earth, then it is good whole food for humans. Number 4, now we know some of the basics. Now we're ready to take action. And the first action we want to take is to reduce sugar, because when it comes to health, sugar is the root of all evil. There is no ifs or buts about it. It does the two things that are the most detrimental to human health. Glucose raises blood sugar, and fructose clogs the liver and creates insulin resistance. Glucose speeds up your blood sugar changes, your fluctuations, so you get a roller coaster. It makes you hungry, and fructose is a liver toxin. So sugar, table sugar, pure sugar is 50% each of the two worst things that we have ever come across. And what makes sugar toxic is the concentration, because it's a natural molecule. It is the molecule of plant life. It makes up trees, it makes up vegetables and fruits. Everything is made up of carbohydrate and glucose and fructose, but it's the concentration. When we eat vegetable, we're getting 1 to 2 to 3% of sugar, and it's packaged with lots and lots of water and fiber and minerals and enzymes and things that we need to break that down. So it's the delivery method that's different. And we could never get more than a few teaspoons of sugar from anything that the earth produces. But when we refine it, now there's no limit. Now we're getting 10, 15, 20 times more sugar in a concentrated form, and the dose makes the poison. So sugar is extremely toxic, and even the 10% that they tell us to limit sugar to is way, way too much. I would say no more than 2-3 teaspoons a day from all sources of refined sugar. Next, we want to reduce processed foods and carbohydrates. So now it depends on the person how far they have to go. If you're not terribly unhealthy, if you're not terribly insulin resistant, if your hormone system isn't so much out of balance, then it might be enough that you just cut out most of the sugar and most of the processed foods, and you can go on and eat some of the other carbs like potatoes or rice. And if that works for you, great. That means that you weren't too terribly, your weight wasn't too stubborn in the first place. You were just eating too much because you ate the wrong things that promoted hunger. But for a lot of people, the weight is a little more stubborn. And now it's not enough to just reduce the sugar and the processed foods. You would also have to get into a low-carb, high-fat diet, or even a ketogenic diet, where you are cutting the carbohydrates so low that you're forcing your body to reevaluate, to learn how to use fat for fuel again. So wherever you are, you want to think of it as a journey. There is no quick fix. And whatever actions you decide, then watch a lot of videos, learn what the steps are, learn the principles. Then you make a commitment to what you're going to do. You make a commitment to the steps you're going to take. And it doesn't really matter if you do it slow or fast. That's more of a personality thing. Some people are better suited to do things really, really fast. It's like all or nothing. While other people function better if they can do it gradually. The faster you do it, the more likely that you'll have a reaction, that your body will find it a little unpleasant in the transition period. But on the other hand, you kind of get it over with. What I would do is, I would do it whether I do it slow or fast, I would make sure that I introduce it as a lifestyle, that along the way, I make sure that I look at it as a forever, for the rest of my life kind of thing, so I develop new recipes and new habits that I can take with me along the way. Part of your action steps, I would say, would also have to include exercise. And it's not for the reasons that you hear all the time. They say eat less, exercise more so that you burn off the calories. That is not why. The reason you want to exercise is your brain needs it. Your brain controls everything about the body. The signals that are generated from movement feed the brain. It's the number one signal nutrient. It's the use it or lose it of your brain. And then it also promotes a better hormone balance. It promotes a better circulation and detoxification. So the list is very, very long for the benefits of exercise, and it will even burn some calories, but that's not why you're doing it, because it won't significantly address the root cause. The root cause is hormone imbalance, and even though it is going to have a positive impact, it's not going to be the main thing that's going to fix the problem. And then I also recommend that you meditate, because meditation is a great way to reset your body, to de-stress, to put your body in a healing state. So we want to think of the body as chemical, structural, and emotional. And with exercise, you're addressing some of the structural. With the better nutrition and food, you're addressing the chemical. And with meditation, you're also addressing the emotional. So you're kind of giving your body a more well-rounded and complete solution. And the number 5 secret to an effortless and permanent weight loss is to not set a weight loss goal. Don't set a weight loss goal. And now you're thinking, I've gone totally crazy. That we're doing a video on weight loss, and now you're saying to not set a weight loss goal. So it's all right for you to know where you are and where you want to go. You want to have the end point in mind, that's fine. But don't force yourself into a timeline, because that's going to backfire. And the reason you don't want to use the weight as the goal is that it's not the root cause, it's not the problem. The weight is a result of an imbalance, and it's the imbalance that you want to address. So when you set the goal, you want to set it in terms of health. You want to set it in terms of the positive things that you want to achieve. And you want to talk about the quality of your life. And it's perfectly fine to write these down. Talk about how you want to feel. What do you want to weigh? That's fine. Again, don't just put a timeline on it. Talk about the habits that you want to develop. Talk about how you want to feel doing these things. And the reason I say that is that if you set a weight loss goal, if you say that, oh, I want to lose such and such amount of weight by such and such a date, that's not really something that you have a lot of control over if you want it to happen naturally and effortlessly. If you want it to happen by itself in a balanced, harmonious way, you first have to solve the root cause. If you think the weight is the problem and you start acting on that, now you're probably going to do some things to set yourself back. They're going to backfire and slow down the improvement of the real problem. So if you decide, oh, I'm going to exercise more, I'm going to burn more calories, then you're probably going to trigger more cortisol. You're going to slow down the improvement. Or you might decide to eat less, and now your body just gets hungrier and you get your hormones more out of balance and you slow down your metabolism and so on and so forth. If you want this to unravel in a natural way, then you have to understand that it's the root causes. It's the insulin resistance and the hormone imbalance that you're addressing. If you're focusing on changing the weight, it's more like you're trying to make the grass grow faster. All right? It's going to grow when it's ready. Right now, the lawn is yellow and it's not going to start growing no matter what we do to it. It's not going to start growing for a few months. And so it is with your body as well. It's going to start doing the things in the proper sequence, not necessarily in the order that your priority is. So what you can do is you measure and track your blood markers, you measure and track your weight, but that's more like a positive observation. If it happens, it happens. You know what it is now, you know where you want it to be, but you let it unfold at its own time. Don't put a timeline on that part of it. Just know that as your body gets back into balance, the weight and the hormones and the blood markers will get better as well. If you liked this video, then make sure you check out that one as well. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.